Five.
Well, hello, everybody. This is Wendy Rose Williams on the Waking Up Spiritually podcast. And I'm here with Gregg Kirk twice a month live on the second and fourth Sunday at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. And you can also find the recordings of this podcast at the wakingupspiritually.com website, as well as on YouTube, and soon we'll be on the Facebook apps. So I am a past life adventure guide, and I help people release anxiety, release depression, release pain, just that energy that does not serve you anymore. And my website is wendyrosewilliams.com. And I'll turn it over to Gregg to talk about today's topic, and which is one of my favorites. And he will also introduce you to his services. So thanks everyone for being here.
I'm Gregg Kirk, and light worker, energy healer, and I do a number of things: remote sessions, in-person sessions with tuning forks, and I help with blockages. Rain. Sorry. Okay, good. Rain's here. Turn your camera off, Rain. Sorry. Thank you. And I can be found at greggkirk.com. That's spelled GREGGKIRK.com. I also run a service called the Lyme Recovery Clinic, and that's lymerecoveryclinic.com. So I help patients with physical treatments of Lyme disease and also energy work. So today we are going to talk about animal partners, totems, familiars, and healing helpers. And let me get this going here in terms of...
And thank you to people for joining us live. You can do that via Zoom, or you can do so in the Waking Up Spiritually Facebook group. Yes. So thank you for being here, both whether it's live or whether you're catching us later on the recording.
Share screen, and here we go. And okay. Wendy, do you want to begin?
Sure. So this is one of my favorite topics. I think many people just so relate to animals. Animals are just so loving and can be easier than people to figure out and just play so many roles in our lives. So let's go to that next slide. And as Gregg mentioned, they can play some key roles in our lives, whether it's a totem animal. And I think of a totem animal, they can come through in various ways, and they can be very symbolic. They might come to you in a dream. They might come to you in a meditation, or you might just notice, no matter what you do, whenever you're outside, you're just seeing squirrels everywhere, or you're seeing a certain type of birds. Or you just can't help but notice all the lions, every time you're online or whatever movies or whatever's coming up. So that can be an animal totem, which is just really rich with symbolism. And we'll give a couple examples of those as we go along. But I just want to introduce the topic. And you can look up whatever animal you're noticing. You can look up squirrel animal totem. That sort of thing, whatever animal it is you're noticing, or it might be a dog, might be a cat. So Gregg, do you want to add to that?
Yes. Well, I'll add to it later, because I know we have a slide where we're going to get into more details about totems. But I just want to say that I was a non-believer of totems until I had experiences with them. So
good. Well, I
have an interesting story about that.
Story then. one of those, it's not real until it happens to you stories. Don't we have good ones like that?
Yep.
And familiars, I think of as an animal that may have been with us many times, because speaking as a past life regressionist, absolutely, I believe that animals can reincarnate with us multiple times. Perhaps you've had an animal come back to you in your current lifetime, or perhaps that animal was with you in a previous lifetime or lifetimes too. So that's a really interesting concept and phenomena when that happens. And animals absolutely can be healers. Gregg and I both notice his dog Dusty and my cat Midnight coming in very often during client sessions that we're doing with people over the phone, over the computer, or when we're podcasting, or when we're doing different types of energy work. Animals are really drawn to that energy. So we'll get into that topic a little bit more too. So anything to add to that, Gregg, or ready for the next slide? And please, you're welcome to put questions at any point into the Zoom chat or into the Waking Up Spiritually group comments, since we're also live on Facebook, and we will get to your questions and comments. So as I said, those totem animals, once I realized the concept of, oh my goodness, I'm just noticing owls everywhere, because I do have owls on my property. And it's very interesting how I will notice them and hear them hooting, just hear them. And I've even gotten the good fortune to take a picture of one in the trees. This is not my photo, but I was able to take a really good picture of one time. And it was when I was really working with owl wisdom. So it just was just that perfect totem animal meaning. Anything further on that, Gregg, or are we ready for the next slide? And maybe that'll lead us into your story.
Yep.
Oh, here we go. Okay. So why don't you kick us off, Gregg? What changed you from either not being aware of the concept or just thinking it was hooey? What changed for you?
Yeah, it's like my experience with crystals and what else? Some other things. Oh, tarot. I was, whatever. I just didn't believe that this stuff was functional and real and can have an impact on you. So I've completely changed my mind. I use crystals all the time. I've learned how to do the eternal tarot. And then when it comes to totems, it started off with, it just got in my face. So I first started doing remote energy sessions, I'd say, well, in the mid 2000s, like around 2005, 2006. And the first thing that happened with totems is, like almost every session I was doing, I would engage with the person's energy body, and then they would either have a mask of an animal or I would see an animal superimposed over their energy. And at first I thought I was seeing things or imagining things or whatever, until I started getting messages from the guides like, this is that person's animal totem. So it's funny because when I was doing these sessions back then, I didn't have the person on the telephone. So what I would do is I would schedule a session and say, lie down at 10 p.m. tomorrow night, and I'm going to engage with your energy, and I'm going to, whatever, your guides are going to come in. We're going to do a number of things, and then I'm going to send you this email describing everything. That was quite a lot of work. I had a lot of homework that I had to do because I'd have to write these long emails.
So it's a remote session.
Remote session. Yes, exactly. So I do them now over the phone. So all this work happens in real time, and it's better to have an interaction, because I'll see something that I couldn't make sense of then, and then I didn't have the feedback from the patient. So I would say, kind of like in an apologetic way in the email, like, I don't really believe in animal totems, but your guide said that this, your animal totem is a snake. And I would think, that doesn't sound very good. You're in our culture, a snake is, a lowly animal that's kind of sneaky and slithery and stuff. But it's actually a power animal. It's powerful, wise.
Transformation.
And, yeah. So moving on, my most powerful experience was with my cousin. So I did an energy session with my cousin, and her energy body took great pains to show me that she was a cat. It was to the point where I was saying to the energy body, I get it. Okay, you're a cat, so when I emailed her back and I said, I don't know what the deal is with you and cats, but here's the deal. At that point, I was actually giving suggestions, like, it's good to have, a keychain or, some sort of charm, or even pictures, inspiration, the wallpaper on your phone or your laptop or whatever, the animal, because you can actually start to gain energy from the animal. And then of course, in totems, there's plenty of websites out there that show you the power of the totem, what the totem is. And so anyway, I said, you know, you're a cat. And she said, and as her response was, Greg, look at my email. And her email was like Tiger Girl 66. Say, Greg, I have pictures of tigers all over my house. Like, she was already on it. She was already in tune with her tiger energy. So that's amazing. So just one quick other story about this was there's a friend of mine who invited us to a place up near Lake George this summer. And he came over and he did animal totem cards where we all drew cards and just drew one card. And it basically related your animal totem to you. And it was shockingly accurate. And we, to make it even crazier, so we, you know, my wife and my daughter drew one, he drew one, I drew one. It was all straight up 100% animal, you know, accurate in terms of, you know, describing our personalities and energies and actions that can kind of enhance our lives. So we joked around and said we should do one for Dusty, because Dusty was sitting right there. And
Dusty,
so
your dog.
Dusty, my dog, yeah.
Okay.
So we spread the deck out and we had Dusty come over and we were like, Dusty, just like pick a card. And we kind of put him up a little bit and his paw hit one card. Pulled it out. It was a grouse. Now, a grouse has a mating ritual where it spins around in circles. And if you know anything about Australian shepherds, and my dog in particular, he's a herding dog. So spinning in circles, that's what he does. And when he gets excited or he wants something, he'll start spinning like a top in, you know, right in front of you. You know, like I'll say to him, do you want to go outside? He'll start spinning around. That's his reaction. So that was fascinating. The fact that, you know, these animal totem cards related to an animal. And basically they were saying that his spinning energy creates, his spinning action creates an energy of manifestation. So
wow.
Pretty.
Well, how smart that you were inspired. That's just so perfect that you thought to include Dusty when you were drawing the cards.
Yeah, it was
not
fun.
everybody would have thought to do that. That's great.
Right. And then the final thing is, so eventually I did a meditation and found my animal totem, and I didn't realize that totems can change for particular things, right? So my general animal totem tends to be an owl, which is a great, and that was of course, that was the card I pulled, you know, when we did this totem card reading. I mean, out of all the cards, you know, just pulled it right out, owl. Okay, so owl is pretty cosmic, it's wise, all, you know, it was a great card for me to pull. I deeply relate to it. However, I mentioned this in my book, The Gratitude Curve, that I had a psychic session done years ago. Anyway, and the guy said, hey, do you have a mirror in your house, an old mirror? There's a problem with it. I said, yes, what is it? And basically there was spirits stuck in the mirror. And I didn't know that was something that can happen. And so in other words, beings, live people who died and they were not in a good emotional way, their energy got stuck in the mirror. And it's apparently the Greek culture and some other cultures, when somebody's in a room and they're about to pass, they know enough to turn mirrors around or put veils over them because there's something that is I don't know what happens to the energy, but as the energy is going up, some of it goes into the mirror. I'm not sure what happened. But anyway, this guy was saying, you don't want this, but this guy's been walking around your house. He comes out of the mirror and walks around your house at like 4 or 5 in the morning. Well, that didn't sound like fun to me. So I brought over a woman, a friend of mine, a referral, and we went in the backyard and we put the mirror around and we put salt around it. We started doing this Native American removal ceremony, ritual. Yeah. And she said, what's your totem? And I said, it's an owl, and we both meditated at the same time and we both saw a crow. And she said, I think the crow's here to help you today. It's not your totem. Well, today will be this crow. So it's funny because we both saw it. So it was pretty clear. And then it was interesting. The crow made a circling motion as we removed the energy from the mirror. crows circling up ahead and creating what's called a torsion effect. So it created like a
Yes.
tornado to bring the energy up to the creator, to be transmuted into love, light, and healing instead. So that bad energy or whatever it was, that the stuck energy of that person would be sent up. So
Wonderful.
anyway, so that was the first time I realized that you have different totems for different things that you're doing. So.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
So Wendy, you want to tell us about your?
Yes. So one of my first really significant experiences with a totem animal was via a dream. And I was not terribly familiar at that time with the Lion's Gate opening, which comes up every August 8th. And it's something that's strong in astrology. It's a heart opening, it's a heart chakra opening. And we can go through some profound changes as we go through this Lion's Gate portal. So a few days before August 8th that summer, I had this really vivid dream. And it started off really mundane. It was just my youngest daughter and I were going to Costco. And we're trying to find parking, and you know how you can end up parking really far out in those huge lots. So she and I parked the car in my dream, and I then got out of the car and immediately was wrestling in the dream with this huge male lion. And I'm like, oh, wow, what is going on with this? But, you know, dreams are just our subconscious bubbling up in so many different ways. So I just kind of took my measure of it and just stood back and just was able to make peace with it and just, you know, admire it. I told him how beautiful he was and that I was going to go on and do my shopping. So period, end of story. So you know, just that was it. It was really pretty easy for me. But my daughter had been trailing behind me a little bit. She'd stopped to check her phone or something, do it teenage, take a look at the phone. And all of a sudden my brain clicked in. I was like, oh boy, if there was a male lion here, there might be a female lion too. I better look back and make sure she's all right. So she was really engaged and she had to make her peace with both the male lion and the female lion had come out too at that point. And she went through the similar thing of just kind of like, do I wrestle with them? Do I ignore them? Do I acknowledge them? What do I do? So she figured it out too. And then she just followed me and we both just went into Costco and did our shopping. And then a few days later, I started finding on the internet, oh, Lionsgate opening portal, and you can move to this place of more love in your heart, just be at peace with all types of energy and creatures. And it was also very symbolic of balancing up that divine masculine and feminine, because we've all got both within us, you know, each lifetime. So I think it was symbolic of that too, which was why I chose this schematic, this image for this slide. So that was just really interesting to start to get me, you know, to understand the power of this type of energy of what the totem animal experiences could be. And I really look at them as teachers in many ways and just try and understand the symbolism and what's going on with it, what emotions it might be drawing out from us or what lessons might be there. What happened another time, for a time period, I had my office in my dining room, and the dining room looked out over my front door and over the front porch, and it looked all the way down my driveway. And I've got this long gravel driveway that actually goes by several houses. So it's 275 feet. And I've been working on the computer for quite a while. And at that time I had a sit-stand desk. So I just stood up to take a stretch. And because I just was hearing from my guide, stand up and stretch, look around, look out the window. I mean, I was hearing it. So I did it. And I'm looking over the top of the computer, and I'm looking all the way down the driveway, so almost 300 feet. And I can see something coming in. I can see this large bird. And I'm like, gosh, what is that? It's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So I'm just standing in the dining room, and it came all the way up to the porch, and it was an eagle. I have never seen an eagle so close up. I just was stunned and just standing there watching it. And I couldn't get a picture because I didn't want to ruin the moment. I was just so in the moment of just going, oh my gosh, is it going to come closer? Is it coming closer? What does it mean? And my guides were just clearly saying, just, free yourself up, know that you can fly like the eagle, know that you can connect up to the divine very easily. And remember to do that. Don't always be in this little minutia of the moment of you're working on the computer and you're doing your paperwork or whatever. Look around you and enjoy the beauty of nature and open up to that. So I was so glad my guides got my attention and that I got to see this moment of that eagle flying in. So it really, really was magical. Another time I was driving home and I was going slowly. I was in my own neighborhood. I'd literally just turned onto my own street. So I've just got like 3 blocks to go to home. And I'm driving slowly because there's no sidewalks. And I'm just, watching for, people who might be walking dogs. I'm just watching for kids that might run out. Or any type of wildlife, because we've got a fair bit of wildlife here too. I have the good fortune to live in a heavily wooded neighborhood, and there's lots of parks around us. So we've got, as I said, a good amount of wildlife. All of a sudden, I saw this squirrel just like darting out into the road from the left side, so from my driver's side of the car. And so I'm like jamming on the brakes to make sure that I don't hit this squirrel. And then time slows down and things start to get very surreal. And I am now past the squirrel. I know I'm past the squirrel. I have not harmed the squirrel. And I glance back in my rearview mirror. The squirrel is running to catch up with me to get run over. And I'm like, what the heck? Why would it do that? I have enough time to think, oh my gosh, does this poor little thing have rabies? Is he like trying to commit suicide? I've got like a kamikaze squirrel after me. And it just was wild. So even though I'm going slowly and trying to do everything reasonable to avoid this squirrel, I just feel that horrible feeling of hitting an animal, and you can feel it and you can hear it. And there's that like little crunch and that little bump, and like I'm like sick to my stomach, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that poor little guy is a goner. And I just go the final block or 2 to the house and I pull into the driveway, but I'm just so sick to my stomach, and I'm just apologizing for having hit this squirrel that I just could not avoid. It was the wildest, weirdest thing. And I said to my guides, what the heck was that about? I don't get it. That was horrible. And I actually turned around and went back because I thought, I got to make sure this thing is, poor little guy is dead, and make sure it's out of its misery, etc. And I went back. I know exactly where it was. I was on my own street. It's only a couple blocks long. There's no squirrel. There's nothing. I mean, I look carefully. I park the car. I get out of the car. I know I hit that squirrel. I felt it. I heard it. There's nothing. So I'm like totally mystified. So I get back in my car and go back home again. And I go inside. I'm like, I got to go meditate on this because I don't understand this. And what my guide said was, you can't outrun your lessons. That was why that squirrel caught up to me. I'm not sure if it was ever physical or if it like popped in from another dimension. But what they said was I was struggling with the cycles of life type lessons, and that I needed to understand, hello, we incarnate many times, and we've got to die. We've got to drop our body at a certain point. Our eternal soul is just fine. There was nothing I could have done any differently, but they just wanted me to have that cycle of life lesson and also understand you can't outrun your lessons. But it really was quite an odd lesson. So that's what happened. So any comments on that? Are there any comments in the group, Gregg, or in the Zoom, or should we just keep on going?
Let me do a quick check.
Thank you.
Yeah. No questions right now.
Okay, so familiars. This is a great word, Gregg. You had chosen this word, and I think of familiars. Kind of the classic is the black cat with the witch, as that person's familiar because they just know each other so well. And as I said, it can be in multiple lifetimes. And here, I kind of like this take. You could consider this might be Little Red Riding Hood and the Wolf. With
They're
showing
partners
this.
in they're partners in magic work, you know.
Yes, yes, absolutely, absolutely. And here's Dusty. And do you
Oh,
have a
yeah.
feel for, whether you might have had other lifetimes with Dusty? Do you have any stories or feel for that?
Yeah, I'll bring it up later. I have a slide about
Okay,
it. Yeah.
okay. And then the side on the right is my youngest daughter. And this was just a magical day. It was the very first day that she and I ever did animal rescue together. And we went to an adoption event. And there were two dogs. Usually the dogs were with foster families, but there were two dogs that were in the kennel, which was unusual. And a dog doesn't have a great chance of being adopted when it's in the kennel because it's not being socialized by the foster family, and it had no way to get to they had no way to get to the adoption event. So Taylor and I picked up two dogs we'd never seen in our lives. We're green as grass. We have no idea what we're doing. We take these two dogs to the adoption event. Here she is with one of the two. And so dogs she's never seen before. And we each had them, we didn't put them in crates. We each had them on leash, and we're just walking around and chatting with the people that came to the event. And both dogs got adopted right while we were at that event, which is just really unusual that, the right family came forward and completed the application. Had all the checking was done over an hour or so's time period, and went home with their new dogs. And that wouldn't have happened if we hadn't, been drawn to help with this event and picked them up and taken them to the event. So that's what that picture is. It's just a really happy memory. So
There's Dusty.
let's go. Oh, hello, Dusty. And people ask me, this is a common question I get, is can animals reincarnate with us again? And my belief is absolutely. I believe my cat Midnight, who's here on the right, who I've had since he was 6 weeks old. So we got him as a little tiny kitten, and he's now almost 20. And I believe that he has been with me in this current lifetime almost my entire life, because I recognize him as the soul that was my parents' boxer dog, Max, when I was first born. So that picture in the middle is 1961, and I'm a newborn. And there's Max, like, oh, look, they brought something new home from the hospital, something new for me to take care of. So there he is. And then when I was in fourth grade, Max passed on when I was in elementary school. And then when I was in fourth grade, adopted a black cat from the Humane Society, same soul. And then when my husband and I were first engaged, so it would have been back in late 80s, we had a stray cat come in, like a neighborhood stray came in, was like a semi-feral. And we ended up adopting him, or he adopted us, he picked us. And then he ended up moving with us from Boston out to Seattle. So same cat. And so he was my children's first pet because they were born during that time period. And then he passed on, and then Midnight. So for animals, same soul has covered my entire life essentially. And that's pretty magical when you realize that. And the reason I included the cover of my second book, The Flow One Plymouth Plantation, which is based on my past life in colonial America in the 1600s, is Midnight had this habit that we just could not get him to stop doing, and just did not like how he would run out the front door. He was just always determined to run out the front door. And that was not safe because we used to live on a street and the neighborhood was too busy. And we were like around a curve and I don't want to get by a car. So, but we could not stop him from doing it. So it would have been back in the year, would have been 2012. I had one of my first past life regression sessions as the client, and I end up recalling the last day of my lifetime. I remembered many things as Anne Warren Little at Plymouth Plantation, but I'm going through the death scene and how I had passed on. And the way I passed on in that lifetime, I was in my 60s, I was a widow. I'd adopted this spunky black tomcat to have some company because my husband had passed on. And, you know, children and grandchildren are all, you know, grown and in their own homes. So I adopt this black cat in the 1600s. So I'm going through my death scene, and how I died that lifetime was I heard my cat yowling. I let him out at night because he was a tomcat and he wanted to be out and about. And I heard him yowling like at 4 a.m. So I stepped outside, just, you know, popped open the front door and just took one step outside just to let him come into the house. And I went down with an Indian arrow in my lower left abdomen, and I died there on the stoop because we were under attack and I didn't know it. So first woman down in King Philip's War. And that was how I died, was on my front stoop with my cat in the 1675, just meowing all around me. So I'm recounting this in the past life regression. And that session was actually in my home. And because a traveling therapist had come to me, and we thought we'd lock the cat out of the room because, you know, she didn't want to deal with someone else's pet, you know, during a session. And I'm going to be in hypnosis. So that was fine. But what we didn't know was he'd actually hidden in my walk-in closet. So as I'm recounting this to her, how I had died as Anne Warren Little, and all of a sudden I said, oh my gosh, it's the same cat. I can't believe it. That's Midnight. He was my cat then too, in the 1600s. And doesn't he come running into the room out of the walk-in closet, just meowing. And the therapist did a great job. She just switched right over to him like he was the client. And she said, Midnight, it's not your fault that she died. She would have died anyway. You know, it was her time to go. You didn't do anything wrong. You can forgive yourself, you know, and just enjoy your life now. It's not the 1600s anymore. And your you know, your mom, Wendy, is not going to die by an Indian arrow. And you know what, Gregg? He has never tried to burst out of my front door like that again. And he had done that for years. And I'd worked with an animal behaviorist. I'd worked with all kinds of people, and I could never stop him. So I think he was remembering us being under attack. And I think that's why he was overly aggressive with people coming to our front door. So he did that for maybe the first 14 years of his life. And once I had that therapy session, and he also got his past life regression therapy, no more. So release the energy. And I've got some audiobook codes for the Flow One Plymouth Plantation. I'd be happy to give away. Amazon rule, sorry, US and UK residents only. But just contact me. The first 3 people that contact me via my website, which is wendyrosewilliams.com, and mention Waking Up Spiritually, I'd be happy to send you a free version of the audiobook. So anything else, Gregg, that you want to share about familiars or reincarnation, or shall I keep going?
Keep going, because I've got a slide after this.
Okay, perfect. So this lovely old gal on the right is my daughter's childhood puppy, and their dad adopted Daisy for them, who was a purebred golden retriever when she was about 4 or 5 months old. And my daughters were in 1st grade and 3rd grade at that time. And Daisy then lived a good long life. She was 13 or 14. So the girls were in college when she passed on. And about 2 years later, my eldest daughter was married and in her own first home, etc. She's in vet school, and she and her husband were ready to adopt their first dog. So here's Hash Brown, who is half golden, half Irish setter. And I believe she's the reincarnation of my daughter's dog, Daisy. It was pretty interesting. So this is the very last picture I ever took of Daisy on the right when I was dog sitting her for a couple days. And this is the very first picture I took of Hash Brown. So she's back again and just living a lovely, lovely, lovely life with Tara and Nathan, and getting to be back again with someone that she knows previously.
Cute. Love the golden retrievers. They're so gentle and so fun, and just they're the most mellow dogs.
Yes, really. They can just be very, very lovely, wonderful family dogs. Absolutely. All right, what's on the next slide?
Here's my reincarnated.
Back to you, Gregg.
Yeah, here's my reincarnated animals. So Kookaburra is a Maine Coon cat. Now, you know, those who know about Maine Coon cats, those cats can be pretty gigantic. And she was not. If there ever was a mini Maine Coon, it was Kookaburra. So how did I meet her? Well, she picked me. So I was at a house that I was only at like maybe 2 or 3 times. I was young, just around the time graduating college, and living at my parents' house. So I was over at this person's house who was letting me and another guy practice music there in his basement. And he was only going to be there for like another week. So we practiced music, you know, loud drums and guitar. And then we went upstairs and we were in his driveway. I was leaning against the car, drinking the beer, talking to these guys. And there was an empty field off his property abutted. And so this cat came bounding out of this cornfield, before we even knew it, ran up the car and then ended up on my shoulder. That's not typical cat behavior. And just became my friend, you know, from that moment on. And she was a beautiful cat.
She's gorgeous.
Yeah. And I named her Kookaburra, and she would, man, the most loving animal I've ever met, the most gentle, she's a, cats are predators, she really didn't bother any, she wasn't into fighting. She never, ever scratched us or nipped us. And we had other cats where, start up at the head, and by the time you make it down to your feet, they're all balled up and, kicking you with their back legs and biting you. And then they're trying to pet them. I've had cats like that. Not her. She would fall asleep on her back on you, stretched out, arms and legs, like a loaf of bread. And then we'd be watching TV. You could pick her up like that. You could hand her over to somebody else. She didn't care. And in fact, that's what she would do if we were all hanging out in a living room area, talking or watching TV or something. She would just go from one lap to the next and just get all the loving, So she was a real sweetheart of a cat, and it really, really broke my heart when she died. I buried her in my parents' backyard, and, it was a moving experience, and I didn't think anything out of it until I got Dusty. Right now, Dusty was bought actually at a place. We hadn't planned on it, but we bought Dusty and this other dog for my daughter. And the other dog was an alpha and really abused Dusty. And we had a really bad experience. And I wondered at the time, it was a struggle where I was so angry at both dogs because all they were doing was defecating, peeing in our house, chewing up wood that had been original wood in the house that had been around since the 1930s, just destroying everything. And
you had a dog war going on.
Yes, 10 months in, they both were not house trained. People were like, what's going on? So we were able to crate train them, but then, somebody came over to help us with the crate training. And so the good thing about crate training is they won't, crap in the crate. And then we looked down and Dusty was looking right up at us, crapping in his prayed, and she said, I don't know what's going on here. Like, I've never seen anything like this. And I was so angry with both of these dogs. I'd never been this angry in decades. And, you know, a friend of mine who's an energy worker was like, you're being taught something about your anger. So we ended up giving the other dog away, and we had, you know, paid a high price for both dogs. We gave the other dog away. As soon as we did, Dusty like snapped into his personality now, which, as you can see, always here.
Yeah,
Always
yeah,
here. Pets, and he's got, I don't know if you can see, he's got very beautiful blue eyes. Anyway,
yes.
he's a mini, as Kookaburra was a mini, and they have similar hair. Their hair gets on everything and doesn't let go.
And look at the markings on Kookaburra on her forehead. To me, it looks like a phoenix.
Yeah,
I
and
can even see like a little cross right up above it. She's just got very distinctive markings.
around Dusty's eyes, he's got the Eye of Horus. You know, like he looks like Egyptian mascara. That Eye of Horus is around his
Right,
eyes,
right.
on both eyes, and yeah. So so I just, after a while, after he calmed down, and I really was mad at him for quite a while, but you know, the lesson he taught me was he just kept coming at me. You know, he came at me with love. That's all he gave me. That's all he ever gave me. And I was impressed at he just never let up. As much as he knew I didn't like him, I was yelling at him all the time, and to the point where I would scare him. Just, I wouldn't even have to, I would just lower my voice and he would pee himself. Like, that's how afraid of me he was, but he loved me at the same time. It's this weird thing. Well, he's I don't know, he's opened my heart and he's my buddy now. And he has been a part of some sessions that we talked about, where he has jumped into the session. So it depends on the session, like the remote sessions I'll be doing. Sometimes he'll come into the room, but a few years ago, his energy body jumped into one of the sessions that I did. And I you know, asked if it was okay, you know, to the patient, like, are you okay? My dog's coming in. I'm not sure what he's going to do, but he was showing us something. He was running, and he wanted us to follow him. So she thought it was great. And then I sent her a picture of Dusty afterwards, and it really, you know, she really enjoyed that. But yeah, he's my buddy now. And we are best friends.
Well, that's wonderful. You really had to overcome a lot
Yeah.
through his leadership and, like you said, his unconditional love, even though there was a really rough start to it.
Yeah, I've never seen anything like that unconditional love. It's amazing, and you know, it's relentless. It was relentless. I've never seen anything like it. I didn't know animals were capable of that, or even people, or anything. So it was very cool.
And then, is there a connection between these two animals? Do you feel
Yeah,
that it's the same soul?
yes. So at
Okay.
some point, I don't remember when it was, but I just realized, because Dusty is another creature. The trait is the gentleness. So the hallmark of Kookaburra's personality was she wouldn't hurt a fly, literally. And Dusty's the same way. He will not harm any being. He doesn't have a mean bone in his body. He's never bitten anything. He would die in the wild because he wouldn't be able to kill anything. You know, he just doesn't have that in him. And he's so gentle. He just wants love and food and pets. That's about it. It's a good way to be, actually, you know. We should all follow his lead.
That's wonderful.
Yes. So let me move on to the next slide. Healing
And
helper.
the animals can absolutely be healing helpers. Sometimes when I'm getting ready to start a client past life regression, because I facilitate long sessions, they're either 2.5 hours or 4 hours. And I will often notice midnight. So I'm walking upstairs to my office to get ready to do that session via Zoom. And I often pass him in the hallway, because in my upstairs hallway, he's got a cat little bunk bed there. and he'll be in the top half of it, as high as he can get. And I see him curled up and he looks like he's sleeping, but I know he's not sleeping. He's just like gathering energy and sending healing energy. And I really consider him a healing cat. And some sessions he'll just, stay there in the bed the whole time and help that way. And other times he'll walk on in and, be all over my desk and the computer and, be near the microphone. And it's often when the person needs an energy release and they're really going through something, experiencing something, and then he'll get more active. So this picture in the upper left, I'm sorry, I didn't have a good picture of my eldest daughter, Tara, who's got the hash brown, the young dog. She was inspired to become a vet. And I was looking for a picture of her in her vet white coat, but I just didn't happen to have one. And she was inspired to become a vet in a really neat way. And I hadn't realized until then, the animals can help us with our life purpose or with our life lessons. And these are the two rabbits that my daughters got when they were early teens and we'd moved to a new home. And I promised them when we get into the new home, you'll be able to each get an animal. What do you want to get? And we already had Midnight, the cat. And they said, oh, gee, we know we've got the dog at Dad's house and you're not up for a dog. So how about rabbits, Mom? Can we get rabbits? I said, absolutely. So they picked out these two rabbits, and Patches on the left was Tara's rabbit. This is when they're little bunnies, because two males can't stay together as they age because they fight. But this is when they were quite young, and we just adopted them. And Patches did not live a particularly long life. And we took great care of them. We did everything. And Spike, my other daughter's rabbit, lived until he was 13 or 14. So, and they were adopted, same age and adopted at the same time from the same breeder. But what I learned, Tara found Patches dead when she came home from high school one day. And it just was really shocking because we hadn't known anything was wrong with him and we hadn't known to take him to the vet. And it just was really sudden, and it really troubled her more than I realized because she wanted to understand why. And that solidified her inspiration to become a veterinarian.
Wow.
So, and then it gets more interesting from there because a couple of years later, I had a friend who's a wonderful animal communicator, psychic medium, who was able to communicate with animals, whether they were alive or whether they'd passed on and were on the other side. And I asked her, well, what was up with Patches? Why did he only live a couple of years? And she was able to just bring him in, and she said, okay, he's here. He wants to let you know that his specialty is helping young people get on their path in life, particularly if they're going to need to know it young and get on the path young, because training for a veterinarian, it's a lot of years of schooling, and you've got to be doing a lot of things right as far back as junior high and high school. And then depending, what major you choose in college, and can you, quote, win the lottery to get into vet school, because it's harder to get into vet school than it is to get into medical school or dental school. And those are not easy either. So what Patches the rabbit told her was, my job was to inspire Tara to become a veterinarian. And I didn't love being a rabbit. I didn't love that body. That's why I was so jumpy. And I much prefer being a dog or some other life form. And by the way, I'm now a dog. And you may not meet me again, but I live not that far from you. And I'm with a young lady, and I'm inspiring her with what she's to do. And it's not to become a veterinarian, but I'm helping her with her life purpose. And I can't tell you what neat information that was to find out. It just really, really was cool. And then the picture in the middle is me. And this is when I was doing some volunteering for the Doggone Seattle Rescue in the Seattle area. And these two dogs, we don't normally deliver, but the gentleman who adopted them was a veteran, and we made a special arrangement for him, and I was going to deliver them to his house. So I'm here picking them up. It's a sister and brother cattle dog mixes. Rocky and Soul were their names. And I'm here with Jenny Nordine, who's the rescue founder. And I was picking them up to take them to their new veteran dad because he didn't have a car. But he had made, plans and arrangements how he would get them to vet care and, what he was going to do. So that was all worked out ahead of time. And then me on the right, picking up a chocolate lab puppy mix at the airport for the rescue that was going to go to its foster home. And you can see my brain has fallen out of my body as I'm like holding this little puppy going, oh, should I adopt a puppy? Because how can you like not fall in love when you're like holding that wonderful little puppy? And I'm there at the airport. I'm in baggage, a special section where animals come in, and I could hear my cat. I could hear Midnight clear as day. And he said to me, no. Just the minute I'm thinking, can we? And I also heard him say, drop it. Like you would say a dog to like drop, a toy or something you didn't want it to have. And I was like, okay, a cat's clearly not going to go for this plan. But as I said, the animals can really help with our life purpose work, or in my case, that is part of my life purpose, is to help shelter animals get their homes. So I really appreciate and get, to enjoy doing that volunteering. So that's what I wanted to say here. Okay, and then the slide on the left is just for good fun. Look at this. Look at this pup. Maybe a yellow lab golden mix, maybe. Hold on, I think I'm getting a download. See the rainbow coming into them. And then here on the right, they have proven that cats can meditate. And I think this is wonderful. And this explained to me, because I could not understand for years. I would meditate at all different times of the day. I didn't have a set spiritual practice where it was always at the same time. And it's not like I like made any noise or, did anything to like cue the cat, but he always knew. And the minute I would go lay down on my bed and start meditating, he'd be there within 30 seconds. So he could feel the energy of the meditation and would just come in and want to meditate with me. So, and I think that, is just kind of a piece of that to just show, that they just like this meme says, the cat can be attracted and will join in alongside you. And several people have mentioned to me that Midnight was an Egyptian cat in the temples, and he just spent a lot of time meditating and doing that before. I've also learned that animals can astral travel, which I think is fantastic, because I'd asked the same animal communicator friend, well, are our rabbits too bored, on the back porch, because they've got kind of a limited, they're either in the hutch or they're like free on the back porch because it's screened. But, that's kind of the limit of their world. And she said, well, let me ask them, make sure they're getting enough stimulation and, enough toys, enough socialization. And she said that what Spike told her, the rabbit that lived a long time, was, oh, well, if I get bored, I just meditate or astral travel, and I just leave my body. And he started describing scenes to her that were very specific to one of the main places that I go on Lake Washington, because I live just 10 minutes from Lake Washington. And I've never taken him there in the physical, but he was so obviously he was going, with me. And Midnight used to do that same thing where he would really curl up, and I knew he was just concentrating and focusing on sending healing or doing something. And I started to realize Midnight was doing that whenever my mom or my daughters would go volunteer at the Homeward Pet shelter. And I was like, what is he doing? Why, why is he doing that whenever they go and volunteer? So again, I asked the animal communicator, can you get any info on that? Because I don't get it, but I'm noticing this pattern. And she said, oh, wow, that is so cool. Whenever your mom or Tara or Taylor go there, Midnight's going with them astrally, and he is coaching the cats and dogs at Homeward Pet how to behave, how to feel more calm, and what to do to show behaviors that will help them get adopted. Because if they're just, acting crazy and they're snarling and hissing and spitting because they're upset and, they're just anxious, it's hard for them to get adopted. So, and they just need a chance, they just need to be in that home environment. So he was coaching them. And I thought that was just wild, to realize that he could astral travel and be coming in as a healer and as a coach and say, hey, I've been a house cat my whole life. Let me tell you what works and what doesn't work. But I thought that was quite interesting. So Gregg, do you have any stories like that of, the animals sensing energy or helping with healing or being very protective?
Yeah, no, like I mentioned, my dog Dusty actually astral traveled, and I was shocked. I was in the middle of an energy session, and then all of
Came
a
into
sudden
the
I saw,
session, right?
yeah, and then I saw Dusty's energy body in, the astral realm where we were doing work, and then he wanted to lead us somewhere. So that was pretty
Where did he
spectacular.
lead you, if that's okay to share, or if you remember?
I don't remember.
Okay, that's fine.
I mean, it was specific to the person's healing, so
Sure,
I don't remember exactly what it was, but he wanted me to,
sure.
he kind of like increased in size. He wanted me to get on his back and to ride him into whatever. Again, this is like 4 years ago, maybe now.
Oh, so it had like a totem animal aspect to it too, and like a healing and getting bigger.
Hmm.
Um, and that's a specific skill that Midnight has. His main job is to be a protector for me. So he does a lot of work to keep my home clear of energy that doesn't serve us, and to keep it uplifted. And also, I've been to Mount Shasta, California, twice on spiritual pilgrimages. And one of the two times he went with me, because I invited him, because obviously he was going to be at home, but I invited him to go with me in his astral body. And as several people mentioned and said, wow, I got really kind of startled when I looked over at you, because there's this huge black panther and it's walking all around you and it's holding space for you and keeping you safe. And it kind of startled me because I got, snarled at by this big black panther. And that's Midnight now doing his job. All right. So I had another amazing experience, which led to a short story being published. And I agreed to foster a dog that I hadn't planned or expected to take. And here's the lovely Berlin, was her original name. And I was driving to pick her up, and there'd been a large number of dogs pulled from the kill shelter down in Modesto, California. I think there were 22 or 24 dogs. So it was a really large number, came up on two vans. And I was picking her up. I was a brand new foster. I'd never fostered before. And I was surprised because I was about a mile from the location where I was going to pick her up. And I could hear her clearly. This is a dog I've never met. All I've, just seen a picture. But I could clearly hear her. And she was telling me that she didn't like her name. She didn't like the name Berlin. And we were discussing telepathically what would be a better name for her. And I brought her home. And long story short, things did not go well in the home, because Midnight would not accept her and he charged her crate. So here I've got this big, beautiful German Shepherd, in the crate, because you've got to kind of go through the decompression and, introduce the animals gradually. So I've read the books on it. I've gotten some coaching, but it's my first time trying to do it. And I've also got the rabbit who's running around loose on the back porch, who you can see through the glass French doors. And stupid me, I had never had a dog as an adult, just as a child. My parents' dog, my grandparents' dogs. I didn't know about prey drive. So that almost became a disaster too, because, you know, Berlin just doing her good dog thing. She's like, oh my God, rodent on your back porch. She almost went through the glass doors to get the rabbit. So it's like, oh wow, the cat's fighting with the dog is after the rabbit. I've got a war on my hands here. And it just was not something that I could work my way through. So I had called several times that evening, trying to get coaching, trying to get help from the dog rescue, and they were very responsive, but there just wasn't anything they could do, because I said, I can't handle this dog. I'm so sorry, but we've got to do something else, because I've got a cat dog war going here, and somebody's going to get hurt, or the poor rabbit. And I also had forgotten, I have latches in my house, not doorknobs. I had forgotten when Midnight is motivated, he can just reach up for the latch and pull the latch down and push the door open. So I was having trouble keeping the dog and the cat separate. The dog had broken out of the crate. I had put zip ties on it. The dog broke through those because the cat kept teasing him, and all these things are going on. So I've got to get through the night is what this boils down to, and keep everybody safe. And I couldn't figure out what to do, since I couldn't keep them separate enough physically. So I decided that Berlin and I were going to sleep in my car in the garage, because I couldn't figure out what else to do. And obviously I can't put her in the car alone. She's going to not tolerate that. So I put, the cat, I feed the cat, I feed the rabbit, take the dog for one more walk around 10 o'clock or so at night. And I put 2 dog beds in the back of my SUV, and give her, a Kong stuffed with treats to, have her settle down. And I make myself a little bed on the bench in the back seat of the car. She goes to sleep beautifully. I was impressed. I think she slept 8.5 hours that night. Didn't try to jump on me once. It was amazing. No whining, just she went to sleep and slept like a dream. But I had the most intense nightmares, and I would wake up during the night and I'd be like, okay, am I safe? Am I safe? Is everything okay? And then I'm like, yeah, everything's okay. The dog's on my left. She's where she's supposed to be. She's facing, looking up over my head. I can see we're not under attack. We're safe. And I would just scan. I'm like, my gun is on my right. And then I would wake up more and I'm like, my gun? I don't have a gun. I've never had a gun in my life. And I would look down and I would be dressed in fatigues. I was in a military uniform, and I could see my black boots on. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? And I'm like, oh, I must just be disoriented from sleeping out in the car. And this went on all night. And when I woke up in the morning, I had found out I was able to take Berlin to the rescue founder, because she'd had some dogs be picked up from her home. So I was able to take her there in the morning. So I just enjoyed my morning with her. I was really sad I wasn't going to be able to keep her, but these war images just kept coming up. So I get her to her new place, and she then has a great outcome. She's there for just 2 or 3 days. She gets assessed. She gets matched with the perfect foster family. The foster family falls in love with her, rename her Indy. And what I find out as I meditate on it, and as I work with my spiritual teacher and work with an animal communicator, Indy was my war dog in World War II in Berlin. I was a young American soldier sent to Berlin, and she had saved my life because I had stepped on something that blew up. I'd stepped on a bomb, whatever, something blew up. And the morning I went to walk her, it's like I had no left leg. It was the weirdest thing. And I'm like, oh, well, I slept in the car. I must have slept on my leg funny. And then I was hearing, no, it's much deeper than that. So my war dog, who'd saved my life, and then because I agreed to foster her, that got her out of the kill shelter. So I'd owed her my life, and I saved hers through that simple act.
Oh,
So it
wow.
really was profound, and I
Yes.
wrote the story, and it was included in this multi-author book. And if people would like to purchase it from Amazon, all the proceeds from it, none of the profit goes to the authors or the publisher. It all goes to provide aid dogs to veterans if you purchase it through Amazon, or you can purchase an autographed copy directly from me, and then I'll make a $10 donation to the Doggone Seattle Rescue.
Very, very
So that was just a powerful release of that lifetime for me that I hadn't really known about. And the dog got a wonderful outcome.
beautiful. So I have a quick, well, it's not going to be that quick, interactions with animals that I've done actual healings on, as well as information they've given me during sessions. So my first interaction with, the roles of these animals was through Lyme patients. And there's, I've helped probably maybe almost 1,000 Lyme patients now over the past almost 10 years. And
that's significant.
the common thing with a lot of these Lyme patients is, they're bedbound. These are the ones who are the sickest. They have these animals that they come to their side. They sleep on them. They sleep next to them. They're shielding them. They're trying to help them energetically, physically, by being in there next to them. So there's these very young active dogs who would normally be bouncing all over the house and everything. They're spending the entire day with these patients.
With their human.
Yeah, and I that didn't, that wasn't lost on me. So there was one patient family actually in particular who they were the daughter is bedbound. They've got a couple of other healthy kids who are out of the house, but the mother is very involved with the daughter's healing, and the father's kind of like MIA. I mean, he works a very stressful job in Manhattan, and he's not around very much. So, and they have a dog. So the mother said, "Hey, there's things are tense in our family. Can you come and do a space clearing in our house using tuning forks and sage and other things?" So I came to the house to do that. And so I did that, and I'm going around the house and everything, and I'm just feeling all this energy all over the house that really needs to be cleared. And as we're standing there, and as the session ended, I'm talking to the mother, and she said, "Wow, we argue, and where we were standing in this particular place, we argue all the time." And then the dog shows up, and I've never seen so many tumors on a dog in my life.
Oh my goodness.
All over the body, all over the knuckles of the paw, the paws and everything. And I just blurted out loud, and she introduced me to the dog. I said, "This poor dog is taking on all the negative energy in the house." Like I didn't have any knowledge of that. It just was like, it just shot into me like information. And at that point, I didn't know that was even something that was a thing that animals do, but they absolutely is what they do. So how this pans out into this story here is I was in the middle of doing, or actually I wasn't in the middle. I've got a regular patient that I help with energy healing with remote sessions. And then she contacted me. We had this is what happened. She had a session scheduled. And she said, "Greg, I can't make the session today because, actually I'm not the one who's sick today, but my dog is sick. And I think my dog Jax may die. And I can't make it to the session because I'm so upset." I said, "All right, well, that's one of the good things of these energy sessions. Maybe this is something that you can help release this energy instead of you holding it. Let's do the session anyway. I know you're upset, but now's a perfect time actually to release this energy. So she said, okay. And at the top of the session, and I'd never done this before, the guides came in and said, you need to do a session on jacks. So I it never dawned on me to do an energy session on a dog. And it worked just like a human session. Like within seconds, I said, wow, I'm seeing like something like metal in Jax's mouth. What's that? She's like, oh my God, I can't believe you're seeing that. Jax has a silver tooth. Like
Oh my goodness.
He had a silver tooth, and he's got, yeah, metal in his mouth. And then, so I started interacting with Jax, and Jax basically said he was on his way out. He was going to leave. I said, why? He said, because the patient was getting better. So, the work that we had done and so forth, and the treatments she had taken, she didn't need him anymore. And he said, I came to be her shield. I was shielding her from and absorbing all of this energy. And now he had, I think, I don't remember what it was. It was either tumors or even like leukemia or something. It was, it was a terminal thing. And I said, you don't have to. But, I don't know if people know how stubborn Siberian Huskies are.
Pretty singular minded.
They will not take anything for an answer outside of what they've already made their minds up to. So I said, you don't have
sled.
Yeah, you're right. Pull the sled. I said, you don't have to do this. Now is your time. You can be into retirement. You can have fun with your, I don't know, with your patient, So now is the highlight of your life. You can really go out and run on the beach and do all the things that you've been really wanting to do. And he was like, I'm out. I did what I did, and now it's time to move on. So I didn't mention the last part to, the patient, but I said, and we did healing. I did as best I could to try to remove, the infirmities, and he did do better for a couple of days, but he had his mind made up. He was moving on.
Well, it's a free will choice. I mean, we
Yes.
can ask for more ease and grace,
Right.
but their higher self has to agree.
Yeah. And he was a stubborn husky, but he was a great, that was, so I learned a lot from that. One, that I could even do, that was even a possibility to do animal healing remotely, and that the information that came in was just fantastic.
It's interesting because I do have it come up during client sessions too, because my clients can write up to 20 questions for their own higher selves and guides to answer through them during their session. And sometimes they'll say, I'd really appreciate, surrogate healing or I wish my dog wasn't so anxious, or, whatever it might be. That might be one of their 20 questions or requests. So yes, absolutely. Because animals can be our best friends and they're family. And we may spend more time or have more private conversations, personal, genuine conversations with them than we do with people. So it can be just such a tight relationship. And I did learn from the animal communicator, we can say to them too, this is not your job to take on that energy. I'd really appreciate you just being as healthy as you can be, and you being the picture of health, because there's often a mirroring. And if there's anything going on with the dog, like if the dog is limping, well, does the person have any mobility issues? It can be a pretty one-to-one mirroring going on.
Okay, we've come to the end of our animal totem journey here. So we're a little bit over the hour today, but it was I enjoyed this quite a bit. This was very, and Dusty is stacked out. He enjoyed it too. So we want to thank everybody who joined us today. I'm just going to stop the sharing real quick and to see
if there's any questions or comments we can answer live.
Yes, absolutely.
And if not, we will wrap up with our thanks for you being here. And as I mentioned, we're here the second and fourth Sunday of the month at noon Pacific and 3 p.m. Eastern. And Gregg's website is Gregg Kirk, Gregg spelled with 2 G's, Gregg, Kirk.com. And mine is WendyRoseWilliams.com. And from my website, you can request a complimentary 15-minute phone appointment, and just love to hear how I might be of service to you. And
Yes.
Gregg's book, Gratitude Curve, is on Amazon. It's a wonderful, wonderful book detailing his journey with Lyme. And it also includes his past life regression session with me that we did together as the chapter where he writes about that. So any questions or comments, Gregg, from the
A lot of great
viewers?
comments about you know, just it was a fun it was a fun broadcast.
Okay.
And yeah,
Okay.
we really enjoy the positive feedback. So yeah, we are come join us again in 2 weeks, and we'll be here. And God bless you all. Have a great rest of your weekend, and see you in 2 weeks.
Thanks so much, everybody. Bye-bye.